Good evening, buenas noches, and thank you for tuning in. On behalf of all of us at the locally based, independently owned bookstore, Books and Books in Miami, Florida, and in partnership with Miami Book Fair, Gibson's Bookstore in Concord, New Hampshire, Literati in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Quail Ridge Books in Raleigh, North Carolina, it's my pleasure to welcome you to a virtual evening with Stephanie Gangi to discuss her new novel, Carry the Dog, published by our friends at Algonquin Books. Stephanie Gangi is a poet, essayist, and novelist. Her award-winning poem, Four, was published in the Hippocratic Prize anthology. Her acclaimed debut novel, The Next, was a finalist in the Writers at Work annual writing competition. Her essays have been published in Literary Hub, Catapult, The Wolfer, Bust, and Next Tribe. To moderate tonight's conversation, we're joined by Meg Waite Clayton, the New York Times bestselling author of 8 novels, including The Postmistress of Paris and The Last Train to London. She has also written more than 100 essays, opinions, and reviews for major newspapers, magazines, and public radio. She's a member of the National Book Critics Circle and the California Bar. Throughout this evening's broadcast, you're invited to ask questions by using the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. So please post those throughout the conversation when they come up, and we'll get to those right after the talk. And depending on what city you're watching from, you can order your copy of Carry the Dog from Books and Books in Miami, Gibson's in Concord, Literati in Ann Arbor, or Quail Ridge Books in Raleigh. Thank you for supporting indie bookstores everywhere. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest to the virtual stage. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Meg, and I would like to first raise a toast to Stephanie and her beautiful novel, Carry the Dog.
I brought champagne too.
I had the good fortune to get an early copy and to be able to read it to be ready for this launch. But so first of all, very happy Pub Day. It's very exciting to have a book.
Thank you. It's been a wild day.
I'm sure it has. And I just want to again give a shout out to Literati, Quail Ridge, Books and Books, and Gibson's Bookstore. They are wonderful stores. They've all been very supportive. I've read it, a lot of them. Literati's from Ann Arbor, which was my hometown for college and law school, and I'm really glad to be here. So Stephanie, let's start with Carry the Dog. Let's just start with the title, if we could. I've read the book, so I know where the title comes from. I was curious whether the title started from the photograph or the photograph gave you the title.
So Carry the Dog was, I have to be honest, is actually not my title. I had a list of dozens of titles, and I kept going back and forth with my agents, my wonderful agents, about the title, and nothing was landing until one of my agents said, how about naming it Carry the Dog? Carry the Dog is the title of a fictional photograph that's in the book, but that photograph has a lot of meaning for the protagonist, B. Seeger. And it's the only photograph of her mother's, who's dead, long gone, but it's the only photograph of her mother's in which she does not appear. And so it has this kind of special power for her. It keeps reminding her of her mother in a less kind of, with a less intense gaze on her. And it's also, once you read the book, I'm not giving too much away. Once you read the book, it's a photograph of 2 kids in Times Square at rush hour, and it almost looks like a Walker Evans photo because it's sepia and vintagey, and they're barefoot in shorts. They're a brother and sister, they look alike, and they're holding a dog and carrying the dog together through this crazy rush hour Times Square. And so it's about resilience and determination and children finding their way even when the odds are against them.
Yeah, that's really nice. I'll tell for the readers or watchers who haven't had a chance to dip into it yet, it is very much, in some ways, a mother-daughter story. A story
Oh, yeah.
about Bee, who is the daughter, and Miriam Marks, who is the mother and the famous photographer. And she, when Stephanie says the only picture where she's not in the photo, she means Bee, the daughter, who is photographed as a young child again and again by her mother and with her brothers.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, do you have a way you like to kind of summarize just your basic, what we call an elevator pitch for what the book is about to ground everybody?
Sure. So it's a book about a woman who is on the kind of cusp of age 60. And she's decided she needs to take stock of her life because she's suffered some disappointments and she's had to course correct a number of times, and she still doesn't feel like she's on solid ground, and she's getting older and she wants to go forward with, I mean, it sounds a little bit cliche, but she wants to go forward with joy and not being dragged back by the baggage of her past. And her past is she was the subject of these photographs, very controversial photographs that her mother took when she was a child with her brothers. So the three kids are in these photographs and they became known as the Marks nudes. So the reason she's at this kind of crossroads is because MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, and also Hollywood, a producer, have both come calling because, the zeitgeist has kind of lifted up the story of her mother and everybody wants to make money off it. And so does she, sort of. And she's thinking that it's the time of her life when she can maybe exploit back and make some money off it to fund her retirement. She's worried about money all the time. Anyway, she has to uncover a lot in order to move forward. And she's avoided doing that her entire life, and now she can't avoid it anymore. And so it's a story about the pain of that, but also, again, kind of the joy of that and how that provides momentum for her future. Is that? I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great description of it, or a really great description.
I actually never had to do that. So,
I meant to warn you that I might ask you to do that.
I fumbled along there, but I hope you got it.
Nice. I think it's really nice. I often when I do these, I meant to ask you beforehand if you would rather you describe it or I describe it. I think that we all describe our books better than anybody else because we know what they're at the heart of, what's at the heart of them. So I think that was brilliant. And I would say the only thing I would say is that you mentioned a sort of a cliche, and I'm just going to say that there is nothing cliche in the world about Bee. She's just a fabulous character. She just springs to life on the page. She is very funny and lovable in all her with all her flaws, and I just thought she was fantastic. I thought all the characters, that's one of the things that I loved about this book, is all the characters are just so alive. Really
Thank
love
you. That warms my heart. I fell in love with them too. As you know, characters take on a life of their own, and I kind of miss them right now.
Yeah.
Nice to talk about.
We all want to go back to our old friends when we're having
exactly.
Let me ask you something I don't know. Are you a photographer yourself?
I am not a photographer myself. I've always been very interested in the visual arts. I live in New York. It's kind of hard to avoid. And I do love taking pictures. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm always posting something and things catch my eye. I have this kind of intermittent feature that I do called City Wonders. So I'm out in the city a lot and I find some crazy thing to take a picture of and I post it. So I've always loved photography. For this book, I actually went a little bit deeper into what has always been an interest of mine and really started to research it, in a little bit more of an academic way. And, it's a fascinating topic. It's also a topic that is woven in with another kind of backdrop of the book, which is rock and roll. And those two things kind of came up and grew up together, right?
Yes.
He's in the 70s, and so did I.
Yeah.
So those kind of cultural signposts for me just made their way into the book.
Yeah, yeah. Part of the reason I asked that question is because one of the things I love about the book is I love photography. I take
Yeah.
photographs. I would not call myself a photographer either, but the details of the photography and the way you present Miriam, it feels like I thought, as I was reading, I thought, oh, this woman knows what she's talking about. So either she is a photographer or she researched it really well, really well. So so that is, I mean, those are the kinds of details that make a book seem real.
Thank you. And I'll just say to readers that that's that's like one of these little things, fiction writer things that is actually kind of terrifying, because I'm researching it, but I'm not a photographer. So once the book is out there, I'm kind of waiting for real photographers to say, oh, you got this wrong, or that's not right, or that's the wrong piece of equipment. So I did obsessively research.
And then also like, you know, like the rock and roll part of the book, but even more so, I mean, you do a really nice job with kind of the evolution of music and also the evolution of photography. And, you know, photography is obviously an art that, you know, started in the late 1800s or something, but has every decade has something new that's happening to it. And so it felt very real for the period and just really fabulous. So
Thank you. You know, just one last thing about that. Like, it was hard because I think the book is set-ish in 2015. And so it was hard for me to not bring in current commentary about Instagram and selfies. And, you know, I do a little bit of that, but I didn't want to weigh the book down with that kind of very complex topic.
Yeah, yeah.
Where photography is today is, you know, everybody's a photographer now.
Right. Well, so you hit a nice balance between, I mean, we get enough of photography to feel like she's a photographer. We get enough of music to feel like Gary's a musician, and honestly, Bea is a songwriter, even though she doesn't kind of embrace herself as a songwriter early in the book anyway.
Right.
And those things, you know, those things seem real. Where does Bea's songwriting come from?
So I'm going to embarrass myself now. When I was 22, I wanted to songwrite and write poetry, and I wanted to do every kind of writing. And I was kind of casting around, and always, you know, I was in phases of this obsession and then that obsession. And there's a song that appears in the book, a full song that Bea's ex-husband has gotten credit and money for decades. And she's always kind of harbored this resentment about it. And that song I actually lifted and shifted right out of my own 22-year-old journal.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Very nice. I don't think that's embarrassing at all. I think it's fabulous. So
kind of crazy. I was, you know, I spent a lot of time wondering whether to keep journals or ditch journals, you know, from my 20s. Right. And so I was in one of these phases where I was looking, and the song caught my eye, and I'd already started Carry the Dog. And I thought, oh, for God's sakes, I'm stealing this from myself. So that's where
the song works really nice. Is kind of an echo of Bea throughout the book. I mean, I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil the experience for the reader, but it's very much it very much helps us see. You know, we see through that song who she was, who she is, and who she should be, which is just beautifully done. So,
thank you.
So did the story for you start with Bea? Did it start with Miriam? Did it start someplace else?
It's such a good question. And I feel like I have multiple answers to that. I don't know if that happens to you with your writing, but, you know, I had the impetus to write about rock and roll and photography for sure. And then I was having a conversation with one of my daughters about an essay I had written, and I referenced the daughter in the essay. And I'm not going to, it was with her permission, but we were kind of commiserating. It was the time of my first novel, debut novel, and I was getting a lot of attention that I wasn't used to and didn't really, you know, I was kind of mixed about it. And so I was commiserating with this daughter who had appeared in an essay about being exposed. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, why am I writing about my kids? That's exposing them. Even if they give me permission, is that the right thing to do? So I started to really think about what it means to have a child and, you know, kind of have dominion over your children, and when that ends and what the lines are there. And then I started looking at artist mothers and how they have navigated their artwork and balanced mothering. And then I started reading a Diana Arbus book and seeing her parents, the way they kind of, I don't know, to me, it seems like neglect. Maybe I'm overstating that. But, and so I started to really think about, of course, then Sally Mann photographs. And I was like, rock and roll photography, this mother thing, you know, and it kind of all just came together.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, I mean, I think I love photography, and one of the things I loved about the novel was seeing some of photographers that I know of, whose work I'm familiar with, talked about, and also a few that I wasn't familiar with. So that was fun. So for people who don't know, Sally Mann is well, tell us who Sally Mann was real quickly.
So Sally Mann is a very renowned photographer, still practicing, still taking pictures. And she famously, I think it was in the early 70s, started taking photographs. She lives in Virginia on a very remote farm, and there's nobody around. And she was taking pictures of her, you know, kind of hippie kids who were running around as toddlers without any clothes on. And the pictures became notorious. And I think I know she was even kind of interrogated by the FBI, and there was all kinds of flurry around whether or not this was pornography, which in my personal opinion, it certainly was not. But, you know, people see things, and the photographer mother in my book is very different than that. She is actually consciously taking provocative pictures. Sally Mann's pictures are more about the personality and identity of her children. Right. And that drives the vision. But this mother in this book, her vision is being driven by her own past. So not to say too much more.
Right. It's interesting. It's always hard to talk about a book at this stage. It's when people have not yet had a chance to read it, because you know, after you've read the book, you want to talk about all the really
also there's a lot of plot. It's a lot of plot here.
There's a lot of plot here. Exactly. There's a lot of plot. I tell you what, there's also a lot of great writing, and I wonder if you might just read maybe a short passage for us. Are you game to read a short passage?
Sure.
I think there's some really beautiful language in there, and I would love.
I'm going to see if I can be really cool and find it fast. But
you just covered up your camera, whatever you did.
I did. I covered up my camera there.
There's just some stunning writing in here, and if I could think, there's one passage when I was reading, and I thought, I should have her read this, but then of course I didn't mark it.
Tell me, because that's
no, because I didn't mark it because I was too involved in the story, and then I went back.
Now I'm going to have to look at. I don't know if I know how to do this. I'm going to lose it. I don't know, Meg. I can't pull it up fast enough.
Okay. Well, let's skip that then. Why don't you just read the first? Let's read the first line, because then we can go somewhere with that. The very first line of the book.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to skip a little bit ahead, and I'm going to read. I'll set it up by saying that my novel opens with my character B. Seeger struggling, as many women of a certain age do, with insomnia. So she is listening to New York City in the middle of the night, and the sounds of the city keep kind of evoking sounds from her childhood. And so it keeps reminding her of the things that are haunting her. And this is a couple of paragraphs in. So I was born Berenice Marks Seeger. We were hyphenated before it was common, but I dropped Marks a long time ago. I go by B. a nickname my mother hated. My brothers and I were each named for a photographer Miri idolized. Berenice Abbott, Ansel Adams, Henri Cartier-Bresson. Miri called Henri with a Parisian spin. She teased Ansel that he was lucky. She wanted to name him Ouija, but Albert put his foot down for once. Albert is still alive, parked and idling at the Sandy Edge Assisted Living Facility in Delray Beach, Florida. Ansel is dead. I haven't spoken with Henry. He's Henry to me, the regular way, in decades. So much has kept us apart. Every few years, there's an article about my mother, and then a rapid round of attention to Miriam Marks and her work. Culture vultures pick through everything old, everything vintage, especially art, especially controversial. People with a dark interest in naked kids explore my mother's work from the anonymity of their devices. The backstory increases the buzz. I ignore the calls and the emails and the notifications and hide out until it all passes. But recently, high culture, in the person of the associate curator of photography at the Museum of Modern Art, has found me. She is the foremost authority on my mother besides me. She thinks my mother was a feminist visionary. She thinks the Marx nudes represented a radical departure from the traditional family values of that era. She thinks Miri's photographs showed that childhood is dark, innocence is a myth, motherhood is a trap, and art with a capital A, will set you free. Dr. Yun wants to restore my mother's reputation. I get it, I do. And yet, that's me in the photographs with my brothers posed by our mother. Nude is different than naked. Nude means on display. So I'll stop there.
That is really nice. And so there are so many, I have to say that there are so many places in the book where you do that. You take something like that last clause in that particular passage, and it causes the reader to go, oh, that is exactly right. I mean, there's just a lot of, in that way, there's just a lot of wisdom in this book, and it's really lovely.
Yeah, I mean, this other thing I'd like to say, because, you know, we're hearing a lot of the darkness, I think, and I think since you've read it, I hope you'll agree, there's a lot of lightness too. And I don't know, for me, life is not about being in the light all the time or happy all the time. It's the mix of dark and light, and that is just what it is. And once you start to realize that you're not chasing happiness, but you're moving through the darkness too, which is what B does, I think that's when you get to a place at 60 or whatever age it takes. It took me a little longer, to understand how to go forward, and that everything is a part of it. And we're not, you know, even the trauma that B experiences brings her through her many selves over the years.
Right.
And then she brings all those full selves to age 60.
Yeah. And then there's a really, you know, you say happiness, and I mean, there's just one of the lovely passages in the book is this passage about happiness and how, and I'm not going to say too much about it because it's kind of toward the end of the book, but where B kind of comes to, I would say, an understanding of where happiness comes from and how happiness happens. That is just really lovely. Well, so let's talk about, for just a minute, about Gary first. Gary, for those of you guys who haven't read it, is B's ex-husband, twice ex-husband, I guess, and a rock and roll star who, so a rock and roll star, sort of, you know, now he's a retro star. At the time, he was a warm-up band for Big X,
Right.
But with all the groupies and all that kind of thing, and B meets him when she is very young. She's out in, can I say this much, that she's out in her prom dress, and meets him, and he says basically, what are you? And by the end of the night, they are together, and they do stay together for a long time, even after the marriage.
They sure do.
And he, to me, I mean, so one of the things that's so nice again about this book is there are no cliches. Everybody, you know, every time you think you're going to have the cliche of the old rock and roll guy, you turn him just a little bit, and you get a little different angle. I mean, I think that's why you know, one of the things that people here may not know yet. Can I say this? The people that it's that Carrie the Dog, this beautiful book here, is the People Book of the Week.
Oh yeah,
really nice. Really nice.
I know.
Really nice. Is there anything else I should? I mean, that's a big get for anybody. You know, that's a big get. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, thrilled to see that. Thrilled.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that because I have been doing stuff all week myself?
I got a basic rave in the LA Times today.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, it's my old hometown paper. So that's wonderful.
I know. I'm still like, am I allowed to say that? I think I am.
And that's such a great paper for this kind of book, which I'm just going to say would also make a really fun movie. So
yeah, it's so cinematic. In fact, it's, you know how this goes. It's out and about. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm trying to just stay very focused on what I'm doing in the moment and not worry about like that. Yeah. But I'm so glad you called out Gary, because his name is Gary Going, and he's an old rock and roller. And that was also a fascinating topic to me, like what rock and roll looks like as it's gotten old. You know? And
it's not old, is it?
I think it might be old. He is so such a favorite character of readers. You know, they kind of like his curmudgeonly thing, and they like that. I tried, and I hope I succeeded in not, making him kind of a stock evil guy. You know, they're all mixed up together, and he's an old boomer, but she loves him, and he still sticks with her through thick and thin. And, they have a complicated relationships as so many of us do. And yet it has endured for decades. And that counts for a lot.
Yeah. And it's, it's obviously a young romance, but also I feel like they are friends in a way that you can be friends with somebody if you recognize that they are, ultimately self-centered and self-absorbed, but not bad people. I guess I would say. So he's a self-absorbed rock star with a heart of gold.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well said. Well said.
So I thought he was a really great character, and then let's talk about. I would like to talk about two more people, and then or two groups of people, and then I'm going to say that we're going to go to questions eventually. So anybody who wants to ask a question, I think you can throw it in the chat now, and I'll field them in just a couple of minutes. But so let's talk about. First let's talk about Ansel and Henry. Just so one. Do you have siblings yourself? Do you have brothers, or is these no brothers? Okay. And how did
only?
You're an only.
Yeah,
that's
I'm an only.
Because you do a good job with sibling relationships there. So
thank you. I have children.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess. And one of the things that's very moving about this book is the relationship between the siblings, and very intriguing. There's a lot of stuff there that drives curiosity and keeps you reading. It is, I'm going to say, it's absolutely a page turner. I gobbled it up in like no time at all, and I'm a slow reader, and I read it in like 3 days. So
that is music to my ears.
Yeah, that says a lot about it. But so Ansel and Henry, they're twins. Did they come to you as twins? Is that is that are they? Did they arrive with Bee or with Miriam, or where they come from?
Well, I love twins, and I like reading about twins, and there's the famous Diane Arbus picture of twins, and I just am fascinated with twins and what that must be like, especially being an only child. It seems like almost fairy tale kind of a thing that that I just have no experience of. And so I read a lot about twins, and I think the boys were I needed Bee to be both protected and threatened, and I think that's in a big brother relationship, that's what's occurring. And the boys, as the novel unfolds, sort of those roles of protector and threat are fluid. And so I really wanted to kind of make it a little bit hazy as to what the relationship is. And it ends up, I mean, I'm not going to give away the ending, but it ends up to be something that B allows to be less than perfectly resolved. So it's one of the things that she has to, in life, we all have to say, I can't fix it, figure it out. I don't know. And that's one of the things she just can't quite totally figure out. And it was a pleasure to write the boys. I really enjoyed it, especially Henry. That was really fun.
Well, I have one big brother. I have 3 younger brothers, and I felt like you capture that sense of big brotherness very well. That they are. I mean, at least I don't know what everybody's big brother is like, but my big brother is, not Fred in the way that.
Yeah,
it's complicated, but it's complicated because you love them and you hate them, and they will beat you up, and then they will turn around and beat up whoever is disrespecting you or whatever. So it's complicated. Right. It's nice. Right. Okay, and then lastly, but certainly not the last or least character in the book, let's talk about Echo. How Echo is, for everybody who's listening and hasn't read it, Echo is described as Bee's sort of sister, I guess she says. So how did you come up with that relationship, and where did that character come from, and how did she evolve in the book?
So Echo is 22 years old and born Hannah, but she wants to be a musician, and she comes to New York, and she is Bee's sort of sister because Bee's dad, who, as you heard me read a little bit earlier, is now in an assisted living facility in Florida, married again after Bee's mother, and took on this new family. And Echo was the baby in the family, so Echo only knows Bee's father as her father. And Echo comes to New York City to try to have a music career and stays with Bee. And I mean, not to hit the nail too hard on the head, but her name is Echo and she's 22, which is the age Bee was when she kind of lost herself in her lyric writing career and didn't get to have the dreams she wanted. So she's watching Echo kind of live all that out. And she's both enthralled and proud and jealous, and part of her taking stock is looking at Echo and seeing the ways in which that her own dreams she let slip away. And part of the way she let them slip away is that she became so dependent and entwined with Gary Going. So like many women of that generation, she gave a lot over to the man and the man's career and was in the background and still doing the work and not really getting the credit or the money. Yes. So she's watching Echo not do all those things and kind of do it right. And her name is Echo. She's echoing.
It's a nice little piece of business.
Also, not to give, not to be too silly, but Bee's name is Bee. I mean, Bee. You got to be.
Was her name always Bee throughout the whole writing of the book?
I didn't plan that so much. And the Echo thing I definitely planned, but the Bee thing I thought, oh, that's kind of
pretty nice. Yeah, yes. It's pretty nice. And she's also her name is Bee. It's Berenice after Berenice Abbott, who's all the children of this family are named after famous photographers. So
all of the characters in the book have more than one name, and that's on purpose. Yeah. Every single character has various names and nicknames and stage names, and that was really fun. I wanted to really kind of play with shifting identities and how we are different people at different times in our lives, and and that was one fun way to do that.
Yeah, I thought the Bee and Echo relationship, looking at the Miriam and Bee relationship, and then the Bee and Echo relationship, it's really interesting because I think Miriam is certainly somebody who did not put herself behind anybody else in the way that Bee does.
Right.
It was interesting. I thought that was kind of an interesting look at how women have been generationally. And then Echo is, as it comes out the other side and is kind of the way that, I don't know, we should all be in a really nice way. And I thought it was, I thought that was nicely done.
Thank
I
you.
really
Bee
did,
spends
so.
her whole life trying not to be seen,
Right.
and then watches Echo possess the moment.
Right. Yeah, and the reason it's true that she's trying not to be seen, and the result is that she is not necessarily seen, but she also gives up so much in her desire not to be seen.
Yes.
And she doesn't want to be seen because she's seen so much when she's young. So it's so psychologically rich and complex and just really nice. So yeah, it's interesting.
I wanted her to figure out how to see herself, and that is I hope the payoff of the book.
Yeah, I would say it definitely is. So this is I think of it as heart as a book about interesting. It's like a coming of age story for a woman in her 60s. It's really nice.
That's exactly the line I used when I talked to my editor and agents about it. It's a coming of age novel, but she's 60.
In her 60s, exactly. So, which is, we're gonna talk for 1 minute about how you're writing, then I'm gonna take questions. But which is the age you were when you came to writing? Is that right?
Well, I started writing. I've always been a writer, but I thought of it as a hobby, and I didn't really. I didn't advance my work as a writer. I had jobs, and I was always raising kids and not putting that first. And then in my mid 50s, I kind of thought, well, now it's now or never. And I started writing a novel and did not know one thing about how to write a novel. I've not been to an MFA program. I've did none of the above. And I literally bought like a dozen plus books on the evil. It was before Amazon was evil. And, it was like fun. And there were all the books and I bought them all. And I just read like every possible craft book. And every time I got to a hurdle or a challenge or a frustrated moment, I would go to the next craft book. And the most important thing I learned was that every challenge and hurdle I was facing was part of the process. Right. It's not like I was doing something wrong or I didn't know. That's kind of where you have to stop and then get through that part. Right. So I kind of taught myself, and I published my debut novel at age 60. And now here we are with Carry the Dog, and I'm 65. So I say my age a lot because this is me. This is it. I'm not hiding it. I'm not, this is it. and I feel pretty good about having a book out. So, I work a lot with younger writers and even do a mentoring program. And I always say, just keep going. And it doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah, I think, and it's one of the beauties of writing, honestly, is that you can keep doing you can just keep doing it, forever until the day you die, basically. Absolutely. It's not like running marathons or something where you're inevitably going to get slower. You are likely to get better and stronger and richer even as you get older. Yeah. I mean, I think Hilma Wolitzer just published a book.
91.
Yeah, exactly. And it's lovely. It's a collection of stories and it's really lovely. So
yeah, really lovely.
So that's great. Okay, I'm going to field questions, and I might have some myself as well. But I'm going to start with, because this follows up on what we've been talking about. How long did you work on the book?
Oh, I guess about 2.5 years. So the first book took me 3.5 years. And then the second book took me a little bit shorter. I sort of understood the process part, right? Mm-hmm. And so I worked faster. And so maybe 1.5 2 years. And now I'm on my third and it's going much, much faster. I'm not, that doesn't mean it's, I don't like to say too much about when I'm working on because I feel I'll jinx it. I'm very superstitious, but it seems to be going a little bit faster.
My, I'm totally with you on the jinxing thing. At my
Yeah.
what was gonna be my third novel, I pitched it as my third novel, and then I pitched it as my fourth novel, and then I pitched it as I would be saying, people say, "What are you working on next?" And I'd say this book about World War II women journalists, and it was finally, I think, my fifth novel, and only after I stopped saying it was going to be my next novel. So I just don't ever talk. I'm like,
I had a lovely celebratory lunch today. My agents took me to lunch, and they, of course, second question was, "Oh, so how's the new one going?" And I just went, la, la, la.
Have you talked to them? You haven't even talked to them about it yet, about what you're
Yeah.
writing?
Oh, I've talked to them about it. They're,
okay.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And you are a writer. I mean, I know people who do it both ways. So you are obviously a writer who starts into the next novel before the last one is published. And can you talk about why?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very, I don't know. It's like a self-protective mechanism, because the submission process, then getting it bought, then having all the marketing. I mean, that's such a different world than writing that I'm honestly, I find it stressful. Just because it's good stress doesn't mean it's not stress, right?
Right.
So it's kind of stressful. And the only way I can really feel super confident about talking about Carry the Dog is if I know that I have this other thing that I can escape to and work on. And, there's that old adage about writers aren't writers unless they're writing. So I started so late that I feel like I have to always be writing.
I think that for most of the writers I know, writing is our happy place, and being on book tour is while we're obviously very happy to be on book tour, because the alternative is you're not, right?
Yes,
but it's but our natural places, with our pretend friends in our own little heads. So
yes, exactly.
Okay. I'm going to ask another one, which is interesting and goes back to the book itself, which is, so where does the dog come in?
Where does what?
The dog come in. For the title, the title, Carry the Dog, right? So where's the dog?
So there's a photograph of a brother and a sister carrying a dog through Times Square at rush hour that was taken by the protagonist's mother. And it has a lot of, the photograph holds a lot of power and memory for her. And it's the only photograph of her mother's that she owns. And dogs always make their way into my books. The protagonist also has a borrowed dog. And I'm not going to say too much more about that because I love that dog character. And
that is a great dog character, I have to say.
Dog, but, not
that's
all
a dog with personality.
Yes, it's a fussy little dog, but I love that dog, and I love dogs, and so somehow dogs keep nosing their way into my books.
Yeah. I like the dog. I like the dog character.
Yeah.
She I don't even know if it's a she or he, but it's a very, very good dog.
Her name is Dory.
Yeah, even misbehaving, that's a good dog. So
she's a good dog.
Okay. Do you have a favorite craft book or two?
Oh, actually, I have a list of craft books. So I don't know if I can somehow communicate that to Christina and maybe get it passed along. I mean, I like the ones everybody else likes. I love the Stephen King book on writing. I love the Stephen Pressfield book, which is called The War of Art. That book helped me enormously because it talks a lot about your inner editor and how to silence that. Because I used to write and it would take me like a day to write a paragraph because I kept nudging and, massaging and polishing 6 sentences.
Right.
I wasn't getting very far. They were great sentences, but they weren't.
And then you find that you don't need that whole chapter, those great sentences.
And then that's deleted.
Right.
And I delete that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you sort of have to learn process. right? Well, I had to learn process. Anyway, I would be happy to share that list somehow. I don't know. Well, the powers that be maybe can help us. And I'm highly emailable at stephanie.gangi@gmail.com. So if there are readers who want to know more, please, it's my name with a dot in the middle at Gmail.
Yeah, I actually keep, because these are the kind of questions that we get a lot. I keep on my website writing resources
Oh,
for
that's a
people,
good idea.
and
Yeah.
it includes some of my favorite craft
Oh,
books.
that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them, I've been at this so long now that like one of my favorites was Oakley Hall's The Art of Fiction, I think it's called, and I don't even think you can get it anymore. It was out of print and then it was brought, I think it might have been brought back into print, but under a different title. So,
Yeah.
but there are, I think I've read them all. I'm like you, I don't have an MFA. I came to this, I have a law degree, which I don't always like to admit, but I do think there is a lot to learn about writing. I think it's a very learnable craft.
I do too.
Yeah, and I feel like anybody who wants to write should give it a try, because it is very, very rewarding. But like anything else, you can learn the hard way by trying to figure it all out yourself, or you can learn a little bit easier way by taking advice from people who know.
Absolutely, and not get discouraged because the obstacles are kind of part of it.
Yeah. And I'll say that I just read a craft book. I'm going to give a pitch for, which it's called What About the Baby? And it's by Alice McDermott, who is just a lovely, lovely writer.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah. And it's a collection of essays about writing. And I just thought it's the kind of book you can just kind of dip into and dip out of, or you can read the whole thing. And it's not so much nuts and bolts of craft as, although there is some of that, but it's very, philosophy of writing, and I found it very motivational. So
I feel we could geek out for hours, Meg.
I feel like we could as well. I'm not sure how long we're supposed to go on here. I forgot to ask. We're at about 50 minutes. I think I would like to I'd like to show the book one more time. Carry the Dog by Stephanie Gangi.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell you that it's absolutely fabulous. And today is her pub day. So I'm going to give another toast to her with I'm going to say I refilled, but I refilled with water because I wanted to be able
Here's
to.
Christina.
Yeah.
Happy book birthday.
Yay!
Yay!
I guess I wanted to just ask Stephanie if there's any, last words you want to say, or anything anything we didn't talk about that you particularly want the readers and listeners to.
I guess the thing that I hope comes through, the LA Times review to me was like a love letter. I couldn't have written it better myself. So there's a lot in there that I was hoping to communicate through this book, and especially humor and the light parts. It's not just a dark story. It's a story about navigating trauma with some light.
It is. I'm going to say that I totally agree with that. It's interesting when you started talking about it being a dark book. I actually don't think it's dark at all. I think it covers some really serious subjects and is a very meaty book. But it is also in a way just kind of a good romp.
It's a good romp.
Yeah, I mean, how can you have rock and roll and photography and art and mother?
And she drinks, and she likes fashion and music, and she's pulled in many different kind of fun directions.
And I want to hear you talk a little bit more about being a late bloomer.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah, because
I'm going to say that I have mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, I spend a lot of time thinking, oh, why didn't I start sooner? And on the other hand, I have some perspective now where all of this feels like icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. And I have much less anxiety about it. And I kind of let it roll out and unfold in a way that I might not have done when I was younger. And I think one of the ways that manifests itself is that I always go back to writing. And I don't get too caught up in all the rest of it. I try not to anyway. Obviously, this week is a little bit different. But I always wrote. And I always had what I forget that Artist's Way lady. I forget her name.
Julia Cameron.
Julia Cameron talks about shadow writers and how writers often take jobs like writing. So I always had corporate jobs that were director of communications or engagement or editorial. You know, I worked for Barnes and Noble in corporate. I worked at as an assistant editor at Simon and Pocketbooks, Simon and Schuster. And so I was always adjacent, and I didn't really dig in and get very serious about it until my mid-50s.
And you set yourself, you just gave yourself permission, or you set yourself free, or it was just the right moment?
I'm going to answer honestly, which I'll probably regret. I had a late in life heartbreak, and I was really cranky about it. So I kind of wrote a revenge novel.
Good.
But it turned into so much more. That's kind of how I started it. There was a period I think around 2015 where in New York City, I could not walk down the street without hearing Adele. It was the height of that album. And I was like, it was fueling me and angering me. So I would go home and I don't really get super angry in real life. It's like not, but I got really angry writing, and it was kind of fun.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for your honesty. I really appreciate it. And if you've not read A Swim in the Pond in the Rain by George Saunders.
Also wonderful.
Okay, that's
also wonderful.
That's a pretty cool craft book right there. Really.
I actually steeled myself and screwed up my courage and wrote him a cold email asking for a blurb. And he said no, but he was so kind. He only blurbs students. Yeah. Which is lovely.
Nicest man in the world.
Oh my God. He wrote a nice long email, and he was asking questions. He was lovely.
I love hearing that.
Yeah,
if anybody wants a quick little video about craft, there's actually from the National Book, the National Book Festival, I guess it is. This year there was George Saunders and Alice McDermott.
Oh yeah,
together about their new books, and it was really short, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Stephanie, if you send me that list, I can send it to everyone who's registered for the event. I'll just
fabulous. I was hoping, yeah,
absolutely. So what wonderful conversation. So grateful to you both for being with us tonight. Thank you for supporting.
Show your book.
Okay, I'm going to show it too. I'm really bad at this part.
Yeah,
That's
Literati,
Quail,
That's perfect. Books and Books, Gibson Bookstore. Order
Gibson's,
from them. They're wonderful
Literati,
stores.
Quail Ridge, all of us. We thank you. We support you. We hope to sell many copies throughout the holidays. Remember, to everyone, it's not too early to buy a holiday gift. I mean, this year especially, we need you to do that. So put this on your list, please, and order away. And I hope we'll see you at some point in person, maybe.
Yes.
At some point in Miami, hopefully. But again, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much. Thank you, guys. It was
Thank
lovely.
you. Again, congratulations, Stephanie.
Thanks, guys.
Congratulations. Enjoy every step. Enjoy every part of the journey, because it's all, you deserve it. You deserve it. Okay. Good night.